Hello and welcome to this very special session at the Eurogamer Expo this year. As you might know if you've been to the Expo before, usually we have an Ask Eurogamer session where people can come and ask people from Eurogamer anything they like about the website. And all that people ever really ask us about is reviews. So we thought this year we'd cut out the middleman and just talk about reviews and get some other people from other websites and other companies who might be more interesting to help us do that. So introducing today, on my right, we've got John Walker from RockPaperShotgun.
Hello.
And you're the co-editor and the founder as well. Of how many founders are there altogether?
There's 4 of us, Jim, Alec, Kieran and me, although Kieran's dead now.
So we've got 25% of RockPaperShotgun, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, jolly good.
In shares.
And here we have Stefano Petrullo, who is from the PR industry, but you started out as a journalist, didn't you?
Yeah, I used to be former editor of PC Zone Italy from 1995 to 1997. But in general, I got a 9-year experience in journalism and the rest in PR. So a bit of both worlds.
A bit of both. And with your sort of PR hat on, you've worked for the likes of Sega, Eidos, Nokia, and at the moment you're working for Ubisoft, but you're not representing them today.
I don't represent any company, just coming and give the what PR are all about. What is
You're representing Stefano PLC.
Just me, yeah.
Absolutely.
Not PLC yet, but
okay.
Never say never.
Nitpicking. So, and of course, we've got James Benz, as you said, I don't know if you remember this, you said in the pub last night, I could call you the Benzinator.
That was the drink.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you preferred James. All right, we'll stick with James. And James, you, of course, were the publishing director at Future Publishing, and you published PC Gamer.
Yeah, I ran the whole games portfolio at Future for 4 or 5 years. I was the journalist, and then I decided to PC format. And I've left Future now.
And now?
I run PCGamesN.com, which is a new games website run by the former editor of PCGamer.com, Tim Edwards.
Which doesn't have any reviews at all, so...
No, we've got a better plan.
Right, so don't really know why you're here, but it's too late now. Also, we've got...
Spins his entire career.
You're not getting this back.
We've got the artist formerly known as Martin off IGN.
Hello.
Now, of course, Martin off Eurogamer, the features editor, obviously.
And also I'm a slightly hairy Ollie Welsh today.
Yes, that's right. Ollie can't be with us today. He's the reviews editor of Eurogamer, so he did very much want to be here. Unfortunately, he's got some sort of wizard's illness that he can't make it, so he's at home being ill. So sorry about that. But we've got plenty to be going on with. I think between the 4 of us, 5 of us, we'll be fine. So to start off with, I wanted to talk about kind of the process of reviews and how you decide, for example, who reviews a game and stuff like that. So John, if we could start with you. Sure. How does that work on RPS?
We fight, primarily. That's RockPaperShotgun's kind of main method of getting any decision made, is just to argue with each other. And so when it comes to I guess with games, we look at the future release lists and then have a Google Doc and we just throw our names by them if we want them. And so you can imagine how many names there are next to Dishonored. And then if none of us is desperate to review it or none of us has time, we then go to our freelancers and find the best person for the job. So, for instance, I would never review a strategy game because I'm utterly incompetent at them. And but if it's an adventure game, I'm much more likely to do it. So you just go to someone's expertise, and if it's not us on the team, then we'll go out to our freelancers, of which we have very many now.
It's a similar process on Eurogamer as well. Basically, it's just finding the right person for the right job. Therefore, I write all the reviews of racing games. So yeah, it is.
Could you write ours as well?
if you really want, I'm more than happy to. Yeah, so there's no real hard science to it. There's no real kind of process or anything. It's just a simple thing of getting the right person for the right job.
Stefano, do you ever kind of, when you look at a review, or do you ever try and find out who's reviewing a game that you're working on? Do you ever panic if it's me, for example?
Not really. No, not really. I think in general, from a PR point of view, of course, there is maybe some people that maybe try to facilitate the review with some particular journalist, but I think from a PR point of view, the main important thing is that people know what they're getting. So I think generally the common practice is that the PR person is going to send the review code to the editor, and in general, is the editor the best person to pick up the review. The PR job is setting in a way the expectation. So if I send you a cricket game, I don't expect to be reviewed very well in Italy, for example. So, and these kind of variables come in, but personally I think this is the general process how it works.
So have you ever said to a publication, we definitely don't want this person to review this game, or we definitely do want this person?
Never.
Because that has happened to Eurogamer. We have had companies say to us, we definitely don't want this person because they reviewed the previous one, or and we just say, well, that's tough.
Yeah, it's our decision. We shouldn't ever be. It should never be dictated by the PRs, obviously.
Yeah.
And there is a trick with that, though, that there is a problem that sometimes the person most suited to it is quite close to the game. They'll have been on the press trips earlier on, and they'll have covered all the asset drops, and actually they will come to the game sometimes because we're picking the right journalist for a job, with a bunch of assumptions about it. Now, that could create a problem because it's a self-selecting group of people who like the game, but it does mean that the journalist isn't coming to it cold. And in the amount of time the journalist has to produce a review, knowing about the game, not having to learn everything about it, is probably a head start that the journalist can get.
It's an interesting point, because you don't want a fan on there because they're going to be coloured by their perception of it. But as some people have a policy, which is something I agree with, is that someone writes a preview of the game, they shouldn't do the review. It should always be someone who's coming to it fresh, because ultimately what you want the reviewer's experience to be the same as whoever's going to buy the game's experience. And that's what you're aiming for at any point.
And with sequels, you will need fans. If you're reviewing an EVE update, you come to that cold, you may struggle reviewing an EVE update. So I think you've got to be a fan of the product to get the best content.
Well, let's talk about that relationship a bit more, because the games industry is very small and it involves a lot of drinking and a lot of journalists and PRs hanging out and being friendly and friends and having good times. Do you think there's a danger that sometimes that relationship is too close, and perhaps have you ever felt, as a journalist, for example, have you ever felt bad about giving a game a bad review or a bad score because you are close to the PR, or for that matter, the developer or someone else on the team?
I've never felt that with a PR. I think part of the job is just being professional. So yes, you may go on a trip to have a look at a game that's being developed. You go to the studio that's making it and have a look around, and you'll go with the PR people, and they're often very lovely. That's why they're in the job. But when you get that, if that game comes to you to review, you just have to be professional and mature enough to never let that person who was loosely related to this game and doing its PR was nice, therefore I'll be nice about it. Well, you'd be a terrible journalist or a terrible reviewer if that's how you approach things.
Popular.
Probably, yes, very popular with PRs. I think what you can do though is, I've been doing this about 13 years now, and you can get close to developers. And I think at a certain point, like there's a particular developer who I've did a bunch of trips with, and we got on really well. And so I've now decided I'm never going to review any of his products because
you got on that well. Wow.
Yeah, I know. Well, an announcement to make. But you get to a certain point when you think, is this person a friend now? If you've been doing it for over a decade, I guess people don't like to talk about that much. But I think it happens, and I think you have to have the integrity to say, well, I'm not going to go anywhere near that person's games because even though I'd probably do a very professional and decent job, it could look dodgy to someone on the outside, and I don't ever want that impression to be given.
Stefano, have you ever kind of felt a bit betrayed by a journalist in that way, or do you all secretly hate us all anyway?
Well, I love everyone. I personally believe that what our function as PR is putting you guys in the best possible condition to do your job. This is the first things a PR should ever think about it. When you arrive to review stage, then it's the game that speaks by himself. And I don't think there is any special magic bullet that any PR can use to transform a perception, a positioning, or something that is factually not good. So I think it is also an industry perception about PR having this amazing power to, control. We're not control freak, really. Well, not me.
But
maybe someone.
But would you not agree that the PRs will try it if they think they can get away with it?
And this is related to the person or to the company. I mean, if as a PR professional, I try to, let's say, discuss about a score and try to get away with it, your credibility as a journalist probably is going to change because you get manipulated in a way. My PR credibility or my company PR credibility is not worth risking. I mean, if someone tried, it's his own responsibility, to be honest. But I don't think it's a worthwhile risk for any company, any journalist to have such a deal, especially in an industry as big as it is now, or as big as it is since 5 years, 10 years. So it's more the question, was it worthwhile? What is the gain?
Well, I mean,
you know what I mean? Just
yeah.
like,
I mean, let's talk specifically about scores, because this is something that comes up on Eurogamer quite a bit. Quite often we get comments, especially if we give a game a good score, and there's adverts for that game, you know, all around it. There's always accusations that they've bought that score or they've bought the review. Martin, do you want to explain that that's true?
Yeah, it totally is true, basically. I have my pockets lined with £10 notes from various games companies whose games I've reviewed. But at Eurogamer, there is a strict delineation between the commercial side and the editorial side. We work pretty much exclusively with each other. And so I can hand on heart say those conversations have never, ever happened. And in fact, in all the time I've been working in the industry, I've never known of it to happen. I think it's something that might have happened a long, long time ago in the dark days.
Looking at James.
Yeah, I was like,
many, many years ago.
If there is a connection, we'd all be rich, and we'd have no credibility. No one would look at our products anymore. We'd be rich for a bit, and you definitely get caught. And that's the great thing about the internet now. You know, if you look at, there were a couple of events in the US that got a lot of press. I'm not going to name them, but where a journalist got in trouble for writing a certain review, and you always get caught. The relationship between PRs and journalists does exist, and often they are friends. And often the reason why one media gets grabs and another one doesn't is because of relationship and some trust. But I think any time that trust would be leveraged against a score, it would sour things, and it would almost be this isn't the deal. This isn't the partnership we're embarking upon. One thing that will happen though is the score an ambush, and I think that what you do if you have a good relationship with the PR is you'll try to give them some indication of what you think of it. And that's a bit of a difficult game because you want to get left the code to review. So you have to kind of go, well, I'll have that, please. But if you hooray for everything and Stefano goes back to his bosses and says, they really like it, it's going to be brilliant. And then it comes back with a 3 out of 10. Then actually that's a betrayal of trust about the access to the code. So I think that there's some understanding that this is what we think of the game from what we've seen in a preview. And that's the closest to collusion, I think, that you'll find everywhere in media.
So when you were the Emperor of Future, you never asked a journalist, you never said, they came to you with a 7 out of 10 review and you were like, come on, can you do us a favour? We've got this deal, bump it up to an 8 or a 9.
No, you get caught. I think that the thing that the most interesting version of that is magazines and websites are brands, and they employ lots of freelancers, and sometimes a freelancer might file copy that doesn't match the brand. If you appoint the wrong freelancer to write a review and it comes back as a 1 out of 10 because he doesn't like COD, and you know that that's wrong, that's the conversation that has happened in all media, and you'll find that because that's what editors are for. Editors' job is to curate the brand. So you'll see that, and that's where sometimes that will create tensions. But if it was for cash, there's just not enough money to damage the product.
Well, what's happened to me when I was writing for Future, I wrote a review of a Tomb Raider, I forget which one, and I gave it 85%, and I very deliberately gave it that mark. It was a truly good game, but it was in no way a 9 out of 10, a 90. It fell short of that. And Future did a promotional thing. They rebranded Games Radar to Tomb Radar, I think. Used my review at the forefront of this and bumped the mark up to 9 out of 10. You could argue that's rounding. I would argue that's corruption.
It definitely wasn't corruption, John. What happened there is it's not a thing that I think they do anymore. Lots of brands were contributing content to Games Radar, and that content would be curated for Games Radar. It was a bullshit plan. Much better to have a website for PC Gamer and call it PC Gamer and say, here's John Walker's review on PC Gamer. Where a brand was curating content to say this is the Games Radar thing, like I said earlier, about a brand trying to do a certain thing. I think it was a clumsy strategy, though. And I think actually, either you say this is the reviewer's score curated by a journalist, curated by an editor for that brand or not. If you file a copy for a brand, it should appear in that brand. That's what I feel now.
Go on, say something else. All right.
I was thinking it's interesting. Again, I think from a PR point of view, I think one of the things that is most difficult, because I think PR as a function, again, they are in the middle. They are working to facilitate the journalists to do their job, and they work, of course, for the company they work for or the PR agency they work for. So it's really a delicate position to be. And one thing that we was talking about scores, but one catch my mind a lot is when I read a review and there is factual things that are wrong, this is why when I think that a PR have the right to go to step in, not talking about scores now, but just go there and say, you say this game doesn't have multiplayer, it got 16-player multiplayer, and the servers are working, and it's happened to me, and the reality was that this game hasn't been tested properly for a lot of reasons. So it's not, again, when something goes wrong, I don't believe is every time 100% fault of the media or the PR or the publisher or whatever. It's always a combination of factors. So when the things are factually wrong...
But I think we'd all agree, you know, that if, our policy on Eurogamer is if something is factually incorrect, whether it's in a review or a news story or whatever, of course we will correct that. But we have had PRs come to us and just say that they just don't agree with the score. And that's a very difficult argument for us to have because it's subjective and it's our opinion, and, you know, we can all sit there all day and say, but you're wrong, no, but you're wrong. And I mean, you know... I
think there is, in a way, no one going to win. There is no way to win with opinions. So when, on the other side, when I was a journalist, when I was editor of PCs on Italy, one thing that I was really, really careful is that the opinion was, of course, preserved, but mostly the facts are correct. So if I get a phone call, I can say, yep, these are the facts that lead to this decision or this opinion. And it's not justifying, it's just, as I said, PR and journalists got relationship that they told together. So it's something that could be justified. I had one case when I was a journalist that I had a completely epic fail review of a racing game on PC. Was 1995 or 1996, and I remember that was the only review in bloody Europe that got like 45%, and the guy, my staff writer, didn't play the game. And I feel in this case that I went out to the publisher and say, we cocked up, and I explained on the editorial of the next issue of the magazine that we were going to redo the review because we didn't feel the person I chose, so I took the responsibility as an editor of the magazine. I don't feel the review was explaining what the game is all about. And this happened only once in my career. But I remember it's one of those points that sometimes you have to step up as a journalist, or sometimes you have to step up as a PR. So
I had an experience like that when I was at IGN, where obviously the opinion obviously is someone's opinion, you should never really question it, but sometimes the opinion can be a bit wrong. Because we had an American guy reviewed Football Manager, and his main complaint was that it wasn't as good as FIFA, and there was not enough action in it. And what is the deal with all these menus? And gave it a 3.5 or something. And then that was obviously a case where maybe someone made a mistake when there's commissioning that one, and that was pulled down. There was another review and someone's job may have been lost.
The weird thing about that is that piece of content was clearly wank. But subjectively, that was his opinion of the game. And it was wrong as a cultural review of a piece of art.
Yeah.
But actually, in that whole range of subjectivity, well, that's what he thought of it. He didn't like it.
But you'd like
but he was the wrong person to review it.
Because
I'm
sure
the subjectivity thing.
Yeah, there will be some people who come to Football Manager and have that same opinion of it. But you'd like to think they'd at least read the back of the box.
What score had you given it? What score did you give it?
3.5, I think it was.
Well, obviously that was too high. I mean, we can all agree on that. So, well, let's talk about...
Can I just jump in on that? Sorry. I was going to say, like, a lot of the stuff that Rock Paper Shotgun does looks like it's just stupid, but actually it's for a reason. So, for instance, we call our reviews, we don't call them reviews, we call them What I Think, and we spell what stupidly. And it's bizarre how much thought actually went into that. So a big part of that was to say, these are our subjective opinions. When Rock Paper Shotgun launched just over 5 years ago, I think we were at the zenith of this monstrous stupidity that was eating the industry of we should be objective, which is just paradoxical and nonsense. You cannot be objective when saying whether you like something or not. It's just nonsense. So we fully embraced the subjectivity of reviews, and we said, well, we're not going to have scores, we're not going to have review at the top. We're just going to say it's what I think. But then when you say that, that sounds incredibly self-important, so we decided to spell what I think wrongly in a false attempt at modesty. But that's the plan behind it. So you kind of get to this point where you're no longer worrying. Well, say if I wrote a review of a Football Manager game, yes, it would read like it was going to get 3 out of 10, certainly, but it would be completely valid on our site because it's what I think.
But the real question actually is, what should I buy? And we get very navel-gazy talking about the art of the review, but the output of a review is should you play this one or that one.
So you get to the marking out of yes, no, or maybe.
But almost, yeah. But actually, what you end up with is actually you just want a big list. You know, if you finish Far Cry 3, should you play Dishonored or Crysis 3 next? That's actually the way it should be, because all the question is how should I fill my time?
If you're looking at review as a buyer's guide, that's the thing, but I think we're getting away from that. I think certainly over here, the style of writing that we do on Eurogamer and RockPaperShotgun, we are getting away from that, and we don't do reviews as buyer's guides, because I think it just doesn't work, and it's not particularly entertaining if you're listing how many guns are in a game and how many hours are in it, and judging its value by that. I don't think it's a particularly insightful or entertaining way to discuss games, and so that's why reviews on Eurogamer aren't like that.
Of course, score got an importance, because at the end of the day, this is an industry driven by numbers. We are a business, we need to sell copies. So
why is it that games have numbers, and why do we need them?
I remember one magazine tried to get out, stop giving review score in Italy. They lost, I don't know how many percentage of sales, was massive. They tried a couple of months and then they go back to...
But RPS doesn't have scores, and it's doing quite well.
But because this was happening ages ago, but now, because of internet, because social media, because at the end of the day, I believe now is extremely challenging review a game now.
The model has really changed, but the behaviour of how PRs and press work hasn't. So, as you say, we're stuck in this 95 model. So it used to be when you had a magazine, you'd be writing the magazine about 3 to 5 weeks ahead of when it would come out on the shelf. Is that right?
A couple of months.
Yeah. So you would need, therefore, if a game was coming out when that magazine was on sale, you would need the review code nice and early so you could have your review in that issue of the magazine. And that was pretty much how it worked. Now what's happened is that's irrelevant. The games come out and then the reviews can go up on someone's personal blog the same day. And indeed on websites. Yet the PRs will still send the code out to the magazines early so they can get their cover out and on time, and the websites are left having to wait to publish their reviews until the magazines... So we're in this insane jumble now.
The thing that will change it is how games have changed, though. And that's why we don't do reviews on PCGamesN. We identify the fact that games are a continuous process. You know, if you're going to review World of Tanks, when would you review it? When would you take your cut? Would you take it at 8.0? Would you take it on this tank or that tank? It's nonsense.
So if you set up a console games website, would you have reviews on it?
I think console games are going that way. I think Dust, for example, will continue to change. I think Far Cry's got a level editor. So there's lots of, I think games are becoming continuous.
If we put a review up on RockPaperShotgun before a game's out, it'll get fewer hits than if we put it up after it's out.
That's the problem, chasing the hits. And so what people end up doing is they'll call if you look online, there'll be a thing somewhere called iPhone 6 review, where someone's gone, I'll get this up nice and early, and I'll get a piece of content into my database so Google starts indexing my iPhone 6 review. And then if you look at, magazines used to do it with their cover lines, you'd have a hands-on verdict super test. Is that a review, is it? I can't really tell. And it was only that one R word that will be the thing people hold back on. It's a continuous process now, gaming. And to say, Mr. Pandaren came out. When's the freeze for that? Because that will keep changing. Diablo, what day were you going to review that? So in fact, what you have to do is you have to say, today we'll think about this game a bit more. We'll tell you some more cool stuff to do in it, and maybe you'll like it today or maybe you won't. And that continuous process is the thing that means reviews become much less relevant. Ubisoft have Shoot Mania. There's hundreds of people playing that right now, thousands. And you just can't say, today we will put a flag in the ground and say, here's the score, because it doesn't make any sense.
No, it is exceptionally difficult, but I think the word review is important because it is shorthand that to say that a certain process has been gone through and a certain that you've gone through a certain process when judging this game, and that's what the review is. So it's not just an opinion; it means it is something which is a bit more informed, a bit more analytical.
Let's move on to questions from the audience now.
Do you believe there is a inflation in review scores recently, with many games seemingly focusing more on the high end of the scale, towards 8 out of 10 and above, where anything 7 and below?
Are you talking about Eurogamer specifically, or just generally?
Anything with 7 or below is partly rubbish, or a reference to what was said about Metacritic. Universal acclaim in Metacritic for games is 90+, but for any piece of media else, it's 80+. Just wanted your opinion on that.
If you think about it, if something is a 5 out of 10 game, that means half of it's good, half of it's bad. Is that fair? Anything below that means there's more bad.
Doesn't it just mean it's half good?
It's a strict average.
Well, yeah.
It's a modal average.
So under 5, it means there's more wrong with this game than there is right.
Right.
Right? So of course you're going to mark from 5. Of course you're going to say at 5 you're at the point where you shouldn't really buy it. From 4 down you're probably not going to want to buy it. So then it's just grades of that. I think people are unfair when they say that the full 10 scale isn't marked. I don't think they think about the bottom half of the 10 scale. But is there review inflation? I don't think so, because I've just heard that argument for the last 15 years.
The quality of games has escalated, and just because of the cost of making these things has escalated so much, there is a certain base level of quality which has risen.
In the 90s, you could put anything in on a SNES. And it was terrible games. And the job was to warn people, like properly warn them, not just say, this is good, this is bad. It was a warning. So the thing that has happened that's changed in the last few years is the globalization of the games market. So you'd see a French critic against a US critic and against a British critic, and that will mean different perceptions in the industries about what an average is. I was publisher of Edge, and we regarded 5 as a strict average, and it would ruin everyone's Metacritic score, the Edge score. And it was a consistent running battle with people because Edge would mark lower. And so I think the score inflation thing has always been a conversation, but the globalization of Metacritic influence has pushed it up a bit.
What's that day in the office like, Stefano, when one particular magazine, or I don't know, some sort of hardcore video games website, gives a game perhaps even just a 7, but everybody else has given it a 9, and that's bringing down your Metacritic score? And is there like a trapdoor and a button that gets pushed and someone goes in the trapdoor and that's it?
I've got a couple of bodyguards. Now, I think in general, and this is not just now, but I think it's something, again, a consideration to do when you got your campaign out, right? You got 10 reviews. And I'm asking this to you guys now. So if I got 10 reviews that each review score 5 out of 10, this is scenario 1, because I'm in the office, getting there. Scenario 2, same game, same media. I got 10 reviews, 3 score 7, 2 score 4, 1 score 10, no, all the rest score 10. What is the best PR campaign? The one that is consistent with what the game was, or the one that I got to 10?
Is that the attitude then in amongst companies, that if a game gets inconsistent review scores, that's the fault of the PR and the marketing campaign? It's not just perhaps that the game isn't to a broad taste, and perhaps it was reviewed by different people?
No, I think...
Is it your fault?
Oh, well...
I mean, I'm not saying it is your fault. I'm saying is the accusation.
No. I think... No, I don't think... I think we need to be consistent. I mean, if I do a PR campaign and I'm be consistent with what the media come out, it doesn't mean that I convince the media. It means that the game speaks by himself and I preempt the people to set the expectation. If the game start getting polarized, then there is polarized score like 4, 10, whatever, then you need to go take a step back and say, okay, what the PR did, what the marketing did, what the game is all about. Again, and I know it sounds a stupid example, but it's not. A game in UK, if you've got a very good cricket game, it's going to score very high. Move this game to Italy, no, you're going to get a 6. But not because the game is bad, but because the cultural cricket doesn't exist there. Okay.
Well, obviously, we could talk about cricket games all day. I'd love to. But I think we should take another question from the audience. Let's have someone right at the back this time, please.
It's a well-known thing that Obsidian didn't get a bonus from Bethesda because they got too low a Metacritic score. So I want to know what your guys' opinion on Metacritic and things like that happening is.
Personally, it terrifies me that that some people's livelihoods depend on this quite arbitrary number, and it really scares me sometimes when, especially because when you say like Obsidian, the thing was like 85, and going back to that film thing again, The Dark Knight, which I think a lot of people agree is a really, really good film, but it's 82 on Metacritic, so therefore that's a failure. And Chris Nolan, by that logic, shouldn't be making another Batman film. And it is slightly terrifying that so much is dependent on that number.
Let's not forget, Metacritic is just media. GameSpot, CBSO, Metacritic, they sell ads on it. It's just another thing trying to package up narrative. It's nuts that developers or publishers would use that as a gauge of their work. And also, all the journalists I ever worked with, I told them to ignore Metacritic because it's not their problem. It's dumb publishers.
Metacritic is a flawed model. They try. I know that they weight reviews, so if they don't trust a publication particularly well, they'll give it less waiting on the final score. So they do their effort. It's a flawed model. It's not a great idea, but it's still a useful website. I'll go there to see how a film's scoring quite often. The stupidity is any publisher who thinks it's a measure of anything. That's just utter stupidity.
Is that true, Stefano? I think that there's certainly an argument I've heard put before that Metacritic is hugely important to publishers now, and there are entire meetings and departments about Metacritic, and a Metacritic number can be the deciding factor in whether a game gets a sequel, for example.
Well, I don't think the Metacritic determine the sequel, to be fair. I think the sales determine the sequel, and there is a lot of conversation. Personally, Metacritic is a tool, and is a sort of automated tool. And as every automated tool could be a reference, but it's not the Bible. So another layer the Metacritic got is Metacritic aggregates not just the media from the UK, but the media from worldwide. Again, media in UK are completely different, and they got a different approach to review than media in Spain, Italy, France, and Germany. So you could not filter that. You go get these big pots of numbers processed, but again, it could be an indication, like a buzz tracking report about website traffic, is an indication, but will be never 100% correct. At least if you not put a human being behind the system that can read all this data. These might take. And as I said, in general, for example, Spanish media are generally very, they tend to score higher than French media. But the game is still Doom 3. So how we can value? So I think the answer would be generally, yes, it's a tool, and people look at it, but it should have never been definition of a sequel, and I don't think it is and also you have to relate to individual within the same companies, because maybe there is a marketing director in the North Pole that doesn't give a shit about Metacritic, and the same marketing director in these subs in Spain loves Metacritic. So again, I think it's just a tool. We need to look as a tool and give it the value that it got, but no, not a Bible. Definitely not a Bible for me.
Well, I've just been informed that Metacritic is giving this conversation 4.7 out of 10, so we better move on to something else. So, yeah, can we have another audience question, please? The gentleman in the T-shirt. Well, again, that's pretty much everyone.
I own a much smaller video game review website than Eurogamer, and one of the issues that we have is that all my friends here write the reviews for us. And they all have lives and jobs and things to do. I should say at this point that Stefano, Ubisoft's fantastic, and they were the first people to send us review copies, so thank you.
Well, I'm not representing you.
Did you say Wheelman? Did you say Wheelman back? Yeah.
But one of the issues that you have is with all your friends reviewing games, it's very hard to give them a hard time when they're late with reviews, even when the PR company's asking you, because they all have lives and they very kindly do it just for the free copy of the game. I was just wondering, whenever it comes to deadlines, do you ever feel that for reviewers, they're a big issue? How bad is it when reviewers are late with reviews? And do you think it's okay for me to fire my friends?
Yes, sack them. Sack all of them. Not enough commitment.
I remember when I started at PC Gamer, Kieran Gillen was the reviews editor. This is 1999, I think. And you had this big commission form that would be sent to you, and it had a line in it that said, by deadline, we mean exactly that. It is the line which, if you cross, you will be made dead. And I loved that line, but I never got it, and I was terrible. I was awful. I did a column for PC Gamer for about 10 years called They're Back, and I would send it in late every month. And I didn't realise why it mattered. I just thought, well, they want it on the day one of the issue, it didn't matter. It wasn't until I was in the office, I did a week working in the office, and I saw the consequences of a copy coming in late and how it had a knock-on effect on every single member of that magazine staff, and was just a pain in the arse. And I suddenly realised that I pulled my finger out. So I think communicating just how much of a negative effect it can have on your site is a useful start.
On the race, though, the thing that does happen is the point I referred to earlier. Whoever gets their review up first, relative to the embargo, may get a bit more Google love, might get a few more links from some people, and it will get picked up as a story. So that's not me. So it causes that will cause people to put extra pressure on that, and you can see people go nuts as it approaches the the lifting of an embargo, for example.
I don't want to make sweeping generalisations, but I will. Quite often that first review, which is rushed, is generally the lowest quality one. And so yeah, it's the race to the
generally
bottom.
it's really supportive because they got the code.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we actually have any actual video games developers in the audience? Would you like to share with us your perspective on the old reviews?
My perspective on reviews is that generally I think they tend to get it. I actually work as a tester, so I guess there's a little bit of a division between developer and tester, but I do work for a studio. So I think that one of the things that annoys me most is something that was picked up by the Italian representative from the PR side of things, which is when people get things wrong, and that really frustrates me. And I think it's immediately obvious when we've been testing our heart and souls out on a game, and then suddenly someone said something about the game that's just never even ever been true, not even in any review copy that they may have ever received, and that's frustrating for me. But I think overall, yeah, I think reviews are kind of pretty much spot on. I think different magazines cater for different people. So, for example, I would probably go to RPS because I think the thumbs up, thumbs down maybe is kind of good. I liked in older magazines where you'd have sometimes, is it better? It's better than this game, it's worse than this game. And that gave me a really good reference point for, yes, okay, this is what I want to play, this is not what I want to play. But yeah, overall I think that reviews tend to be on the better side if they're kind of from magazines which are really obviously kind of like behemoth magazines that I'm not going to go into which ones they are. But
Oh, go on.
No. And if it's that, then I think it's obvious that sometimes those reviews can tend to be a little bit, let's say, led by, not so much by personal opinion, but by other forces.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Representing the entire video games development industry there.
Would you say there is a ideal size for a game review, or would you say it's dependent on how well the writer throws it out there?
For like an iOS thing, it might not be relevant to have a 2,000-word sprawling review on it, but for something like Skyrim, you'd feel shortchanged if it was just 300 words. So it very much depends on what you're reviewing.
James, did you have anything to say on that?
I think it's whatever suits the game. What you will end up doing in a review, though, is other functions. You'll be describing lots of aspects of the game. You'll be in the wiki inside the review if it's bigger. You'll be doing too much exposition of storyline. You'll be giving away spoilers. So that kind of thing. I think that if you're seeking to entertain and you can hold an audience, knock yourself out. But if you're trying to say buy it or not, that's a short thing.
I think word counts are brilliant for writers, not so much for readers. I think they can train you to be a great writer. So, if you've told you've only got 450 words to say everything about a game, you're going to have to get good quick. But the moment that I was set free into the wonderful fields of Eurogamer and RockPaperShotgun with, as I always say, there's no bottom to an internet page, suddenly if I needed 2,000 words to say everything that needed to be said, I had them. So I think it dictates just how much do you have to say and how important is it that you get it out there. And if you only have 500 words to say, that's good too.
There was a review in Empire written by the editor of Empire magazine of Quentin Tarantino film. And it was a magazine review. And he'd made the art editor make the text really small because he'd refused to have his piece of art cut, and that was the size it had to be. It was just ghastly looking.
Okay, I think we've got one more, as long as it's not epic, and that was the first hand up, Under the Lights. You, sir, again in the T-shirt with the wristband.
When you guys are writing reviews, do you sort of feel duty-bound to go a certain way into the game before being able to offer an informed opinion on it? For example, I know there was a comment about having to almost approach the game as if you're a consumer because that's the market you're writing for. But if you're not enjoying a game, would you just blitz through a main quest line in order to finish it and get your review done? Or do you almost feel duty-bound to go on every side quest, nook and cranny, to then be able to offer that informed opinion? What's
your opinion? Would you prefer it if do you think a reviewer should play a game the whole way through to be able to offer a proper opinion on it? Have you thought about this at all? It's your question.
No, I guess I would, but at the same point, if someone does that, it might not be the same thing I do myself. So it's like, are they almost then offering opinion and words which I'd be investing time reading on something that I'll never end up experiencing, even if I then sort of end up purchasing the game based on the review?
It's a FIFA review versus a Skyrim review, isn't it? There's a different need, and there's a different to be able to get a subjective opinion of it, and also to be able to share stuff with the audience. I once read 96 pages about FIFA 94, and that was too much for a FIFA magazine. I just think that you've got to just play it for the right amount. There was a story once about somebody who spent a long time fiddling around on a character creation screen, and then filed the review. And the publisher could see exactly the time that he'd spent playing the game and what he'd done in the game. And we had to rewrite that one once on zone.
Yeah, always leave MMOs running overnight. That's a good tip for reviewers there. I think...
Trick of the trade.
I think it depends. I think it's very dependent on the game. Obviously, there's some games you can't finish, and there's some games that are only an hour long. So, there's a huge spread there. I think when you're working in magazines, especially, reality is a huge factor. So, the magazine has to go to press on this day. If you've only had the code for 3 days and you can't get the review done in that time, you have to make a big decision. Do I need to play more of this game before I can have a valid opinion? And as you go through it, and as you play an awful lot of games every day for your living, you start to be able to judge a game pretty quickly. I think there's two important things. One, you probably know how good a game's going to be within the first half hour, but if you review it from that, you're lazy and you're stupid. The other thing is, if a game is terrible for 10 hours and then suddenly gets good, I say that's a terrible game. And I refuse to back into this idea that, but if you'd carried on playing it for another 33 hours, then it would have become amazing. Well,
you get the sword.
or I could play something else. I think that's important.
Stefano, have you ever experienced reading a review of a game you've worked on and you've just got the sense that they just haven't played it enough?
I think, again, is something's connected, again, is the kind of game. I had a couple of experiences where you can tell factual stuff that's not there, so say this is wrong. What I think, as to preempt this, without forcing journalists to do anything particular, but one of the solutions, especially today, I don't see anything wrong when you send a code and a letter with it. We say, we think this is the playing hours of the game from the beginning to finish. Just to give again, it's a positioning, say this game is going to be massive, so we know that to finish the plot going to be this time. So if you receive this information as a media, you say, okay, these are an indication so I can schedule in advance. And then, as John says, if the first 10 hours are not good, well, I should report it.
I want to say Stefano is one of the most generous PRs. He's one of the most easy to work with. I think it would be much more interesting on this panel had we had certain other PR people up here.
So you want me to leave there?
Yeah, we did ask a few tossers, but they're tossers, so they didn't want to come. No, you are first choice, of course, because, you're, Stefano, marvellous. Good. All right, well, thank you. Thank you so much to all our panellists for joining us today, and thank you very much for coming along to this session, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the expo. Thanks very much.